The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, there's another bit of business we need to clean up here, and I would invite my distinguished colleague from South Carolina to join me in this. We voted back on March 15th, 2022, to erect a plaque in the Congress of the United States to honor the police officers who fought tooth and nail with valor and courage and heroism to defend us against mobs of thousands of marauding rioters and insurrectionists, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, Three Percenters, who came to try to overthrow a presidential election. They stormed the Capitol. They injured, wounded, hospitalized, brutalized more than 140 officers, many of whom are still suffering from the physical and mental wounds today. Well, we voted back on March 15, 2022, to put a plaque up in Congress to honor them. And it reads this: on behalf of a grateful Congress, this plaque honors the extraordinary individuals who bravely protected and defended this symbol of democracy on January 6, 2021. Their heroism will never be forgotten. Well, alas, Mr. Speaker, their heroism seems already to have been forgotten by some of our colleagues. The plaque exists. We've got the plaque. It's been produced. And yet the Speaker of the House refuses to put the plaque up. 2 years later, why? Why will we not honor the police officers like Sergeant Gunnell, who was forced to leave the police force because of the severe injuries that he suffered then, and is trying to support his family on around half the salary that he had before? Why would we not honor the officers like Michael Fanone, who wasn't even on duty that day, but he heard about the riots at the Capitol and he came down to join the fight with his brothers and sisters in blue and was nearly killed? He begged for his life to the mob, saying he had 4 daughters of his own. He had a heart attack. Will we not honor Michael Fanone? Will we honor Officer Harry Dunn, who fought for hours and hours, enduring not just all the physical attacks, but savage racial epithets and abuse? How about Officer Hodges, who nearly died trying to stop the mob from entering the Capitol? He got caught in the doorway on the western front of the Capitol. He was tortured in front of the eyes of the world. You probably know the pictures of him being caught and beaten by the mob, which that day was wielding Confederate battle flags, American flags, baseball bats, steel pipes, broken furniture, you name it, to attack our officers. These people gave blood, sweat, and tears. And several officers died in the aftermath, including Officer Brian Sicknick, who died the very next day after receiving grievous wounds and injuries. And we could be doing a lot more for them. President Trump wants a fund for January 6th. That's good, right? No, he wants a fund for the rioters' families. He wants a fund for the insurrectionists that he pardoned, not for the police officers. Will my colleagues say anything about that? At the very least, let's put up the plaque to honor these officers. Not a single member of the majority has given us one reason why this plaque, which is completed, has not been hung in the Capitol of the United States. Why not? And if you don't respect the law enforcement officers and the police who fought tooth and nail for us that day, at least respect the rule of law. They're supposed to be up 2 years ago. Forgive my passion, but I was there. I was here on January 6, 2021. I heard them chanting, "Hang Mike Pence! Hang Mike Pence!" The words are still echoing in my mind from that day. They're looking for Nancy Pelosi. They were quoted as saying they wanted to assassinate Nancy Pelosi. They stormed her office. They took over her office. Do we honor police officers for real? Or do we only honor them if it's politically convenient for us to honor them? Like the prosecutors. The new Attorney General got in. The new acting U.S. Attorney, Ed Martin, got in. They were forced to withdraw that nomination after it turned out he'd appeared 150 different times on Russian propaganda networks like Russia Today and Sputnik. And after it turned out, he had all kinds of neo-Nazi affiliations and friendships. But anyway, he got in, and you know what he did? They fired more than a dozen of the most experienced veteran prosecutors in the Department of Justice. Why? Because they did their jobs. Because they prosecuted the people who committed that massive assault on American democracy. The greatest mass assault, violent assault on the Capitol in the history of the United States. We've never seen anything like it. But this administration not only pardoned more than 1,500 people who participated in that brutality, in that attempt to overthrow an election which Joe Biden won by more than 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. Not only did they pardon all of those offenders, whether they were nonviolent or violent, and a lot of them have already gone on to re-offend since they got their pardons from Donald Trump. Well, not only did they do that, they wanted to sack the prosecutors for doing their jobs. Is there anybody on that side of the aisle that will speak out against this obscenity? No, I don't think so. Is there anybody on that side of the aisle who is uttering support for law enforcement during our Law Enforcement Week who will say it's time to put up the plaque in honor of the officers who defended us? Well, Mr. Speaker, I hope my colleagues have some good reason for doing what they're doing. You know, the framers of the Constitution thought that people who participated in government would come to identify with their branch of government. And that's why I thought, well, when they stormed the Capitol and Donald Trump incited a violent insurrection against us, that we would, in bipartisan unison, denounce it and vote to impeach and convict. 10 Republicans did join all of the Democrats in doing that. That was historic. 7 Republican senators voted to convict after seeing overwhelming evidence. Mitch McConnell also found the evidence completely convincing, but he said, well, I don't think the Senate has jurisdiction to try and convict a former president, despite the fact that that contradicted 2 centuries of precedent. And the Senate ruled on the very first day against that motion to dismiss the charges. But he said there was nothing that could be done, even though Donald Trump was actually and factually and ethically and morally responsible for everything that happened. When will my colleagues finally break from the cultish obedience to Donald Trump, who now is over in the Middle East on what looks like a business trip for him and his family? They're all raking in not just hundreds of millions of dollars, but billions of dollars with their business deals. And my colleagues are back home doing his bidding, trying to slash $888 billion from Medicaid and the programs that the American people have built. Our parents and our grandparents built those programs so we can take care of ourselves. And the richest man in the world and Donald Trump, now they've got another agenda. They've left your agenda behind. They left you guys to do the dirty work. Donald Trump, he's collecting a $400 million flying grift gift from Qatar. They're giving him Bribery Force One. Nobody's ever seen anything like this in the history of the United States. They're trying to give him a jet plane. How humiliating is that for the American president to be flying around in a plane created by the dictator, the theocratic monster of Qatar, while they're collecting billions of dollars, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner's gotten $2 billion from Saudi Arabia. Totally in violation of the Constitution. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 says that nobody holding an office of trust under the United States shall, without the consent of Congress, collect a present, an emolument, an office or title of any kind whatever from a king, a prince, or a foreign state. And that's Donald Trump's new business, to go and collect foreign government emoluments. I hope my colleagues will join us at least in demanding that he come to Congress to ask for permission to keep that $400 million bug-riddled airplane that he wants to fly around on somebody else's tab. It is absurd, the lengths that they've gone to mangle and trample our Constitution. Yeah, let's get back to law enforcement. Let's get back to the rule of law, starting with the Constitution of the United States of America. That president wants to keep all of these gifts from foreign dictators come to Congress. That's what Abraham Lincoln did. The king of Siam gave Abraham Lincoln elephant tusks. This is in the middle of the Civil War. Check out the descent of honor and integrity in our country. In the middle of the Civil War, President Lincoln comes to Congress and says, "Can I keep those elephant tusks?" And Congress comes back with a message and says, "We love you, Honest Abe. You're doing a great job in the war, but no, turn those over to the Department of Interior." My colleagues will not even demand that Donald Trump bring his corrupt gifts, his royal spoils, to the Congress of the United States to ask our consent. And every president has done it up until this one. So let's get back to the rule of law. Let's enforce the Constitution. Let's honor the police officers who defended us. And let's stay away from bills that just put a lot more guns into traffic to make life more dangerous for police officers and for everybody in America. I yield back, Mr. Speaker.